Well, now that we've made some additions to the Add Font Face selector, and as you can see here, we've got our chunk 5 in place. The last thing I want to do is perhaps make some additions to the navigation, just perhaps add a transform here as well, and maybe we'll clean up this element here, which kind of looks pointy with the rest of the rounded edges. So how about adding a little bit of a transition so that the rollover state for these will actually fade into view, and we'll do a little something with this as well. So let's jump back to whatever editor you're working with, and I'm still working with the progress file, and as you can see, our add font face is addressing the chunk 5. But we want to talk about the navigation elements, and while we're scrolling down, you see here's the header HP, the header paragraph, the one that was in fact transforming with its hover state here. What I'm going to do is to copy this transition information, copy, Command C, Control C on a PC, and I'm going to scroll down to the navigation, and here you'll see nav information and nav list items and list items A and a link, a visited, and oh, lo and behold, we already have an a hover. So all we really need to do is to add a little bit of code that we just borrowed from earlier on about using the CSS3 transitions, and you'll notice the reason I'm copying it, it'll be a lot quicker for us to do so, and that way we can just implement all of these web's browser issues here. We're declaring all of them. That looks great. And do we have to do anything for the A hover? No, it's already done. So let's just save this and let's preview this now in our browser. So I'll refresh. And if you remember, now my transition is actually fading in those elements. So the navigation looks a whole lot different than it did just a second ago. And that's great for us. Now, you see how easy it was for us to implement a transition, and some of the earlier videos illustrated that as well. I mean, if you wanted to, you could make a transition for these section areas inside the footer. So when we roll over this, maybe give it a background color. Roll over this, another background color. The only problem is, since we have a rounded corner here, and this would be a square, we would see a little square of gray if we made the background color gray. So we would have to, create a custom class for, I guess, this one and this one, so that they would have rounded corners on their respective edges. But I'm going to avoid doing that right now. I mean, you can experiment with that and you try doing that if you wish. At the moment, though, I want to address what's happening in this little element right there. Now, again, I think if we roll on up to our header paragraph, and there's the hover state for that header paragraph. I think one of the things that we can do is try to give it a rounded edge. So as you may remember, my complaint with this was that, it's great to show you how we can slant something, but, these pointy sort of elements here are not really working with the nice rounded elements that I have in my design. So I think what I'll do is to, again, borrow some information. If you remember, our content area, that's the main container holding everything, was giving border radius 25 around everything. So I'm going to copy this, and we're going to go to our header paragraph. And look, just before the skew transform information, I will paste in some information here. Actually, I'm going to copy this comment just so I can put in another comment here, and I'll just say rounded corners. There you go. So now we should save this, and when we preview it, you'll see some interesting changes. Oh, look at that, right? It's still skewed, but it has these rounded elements to them, and that's just fine. I mean, wonderful, easy enough to do. One other thing that we could perhaps do is let's look at the body for a second, and instead of just using the gray background color that I had, I think I'm going to copy the body's background color here. Well, it's 353535, the same dark color that we're using elsewhere. But maybe I'm going to fade in the background image. So not only is it just a color that's fading into view when we come to the header paragraph, but by the time that header is in the hover state, we will also add this background image. So the dots that we have on the background for the body we'll put in the background for this paragraph as well. And remember, we change the color. Now look, I'll leave the color for a moment just to show you that when we come in here and we make that change, there's a couple things that are happening. Well, number one, because I didn't change the background color, it's still that 888 gray. So what it shows you is that this particular graphic that I'm using to tile in the background is actually got a transparency on it, and because of that we can put whatever background color we want in here. It could be green, but I think I'm going to go with this one, so it almost seems as though, you know, we're punching a hole through this thing. So let's see. I'm going to come back to the header paragraph hover state, and we'll say 353535, save that. And now when we preview this in the browser, check it out. So we have something that looks pretty much like it does here. Now the one difference that you may note is that when you are skewing the element, right, it sort of seems like it's skewing all of the element. So again, that's dependent upon what you want, how you want it to look, and whether or not that works for you. Remember though, if you do want to just remove the skew, you know, it's very easy for you to do that. You could just, you know, take it out here, or you could actually just confine everything within another set of, let's see, if I come in here, well, actually, I think we'll have to do that because we got a lot of comments in here, so we'd have to remove these. But nevertheless, if I did remove these temporarily, I'm just going to Control X to remove them. And we should save if we want to preview in our browser. So notice it's no longer skewed, and now we have a rounded element again that is not skewed. So it really depends on what you want to be doing with it, how you want this to work for you. We could have even applied the background image in here if you wanted to. Remember, any background will do because it's a transparency. All right, now just since we're fooling around, I'm going to put this back to have it skewed. All right, so we'll leave it as is, but let's just take a look. And if I were to borrow this background image yet again, and let's just see what it looks like inside the navigation. If we don't like it, we can always change it. So I'm going to go to the hover state for the navigation, and here's the background color, certainly. But look, let's put in a background image, and let's save that and then see what this looks like. So I'm going to preview it. That one is skewed again. And check that out. Look. Now, not only do we have things fading into view, but we've also got, you know, a little bit of a graphic element in there that's using our image, and our image is transparent, as I mentioned, so any background will do. Isn't that cool? So again, why am I going with those little dots? Well, I'm kind of picking up on some of the little dots that I see in the skin texture of the frog here. So we're trying to bring that into bear. So check it out. I mean, however you like that to work, whether or not you actually do want to have those dots or whether or not you want to remove them. Remember, it's just one line. So I certainly can come in here and remove them. And if I preview that again, you may like it better, just a solid color. But nevertheless, as you can see, working with transitions and doing some really fun things with them can really make your web development so much more exciting and so much more fun thanks to CSS3.